want to spend a little bit of time today talking with you about some of my experiences in Mozambique. And one of the things that I found there, as you do whenever you travel, is the food is somewhat different, but there's some similarities between what we have here at home. So one of the very common dishes that people ate where I was is called Xima, and we're going to make that today. Xima is made with maize meal, which is difficult to find in the States. It's somewhat similar to cornmeal, which you can see on this side in the yellow, but cornmeal is much more coarse and maize meal is very fine, very much more like flour. So if you can get a white cornmeal, it tends to have a finer feel to it. There's one brand in particular, Aunt Jemima's, that is closer to what I was seeing there than anything else that I found here. You can get it online, but it costs you an arm and a leg, and we're just going to adapt what we can to fit where we are here. So these are the two things. They're prepared in very much the same ways if you were going to make cornmeal mush, however. So I've got about 3 cups of water that it was at a boil. I'm going to turn it back on and let it come back to one, and about a ½ teaspoon of salt. Now, a lot of the Xima that I ate and tasted there didn't seem to have salt in it or much at all. So I'm adding a little bit more to it for bringing it more to the American palate, or at least to my own palate. I've also got a cup of the cornmeal here, the white cornmeal. I'm going to mix that because we want to avoid lumps as much as we can with a cup of cold water. And this is the same way that I was raised doing cornmeal mush. Cornmeal mush in the States has been eaten by low-income folks for many, many, many years. I was raised on part of it, not necessarily because I was low income, but because I was raised by parents who had been low income at one time, and it becomes part of your culture. So mixing it with the cold water enables me to get these two together without having lumps to it. If you want to add it directly to the hot water, it requires extensively more stirring. Going to add that. I turn the burner off so that I can get this mixed in, again, to reduce the possibility that we're going to have lumps. And now that I've got those blended in, I'm going to turn it back on. Now, in Mozambique, this is not necessarily the way this would be done. This kind of a dish, as I mentioned, is common in the States with a slightly different version of cornmeal. It's also very common throughout Africa, and it's called different things in different countries, but it's a very common food that's eaten by folks that don't have a lot of money, and the primary reason for it is to fill you up. So you'll be given very large servings of it. 2 to 3 cups would be a serving, simply because the main goal of it is to help people not be hungry. Now, this is going to come to a low boil. We're going to let it cook for a little bit longer period of time there. I want it to thicken up. It becomes very, very thick, similar to the way polenta does. We're familiar with that in the States now. We know that it's used in Italy a lot. So I want this to continue to thicken up, so I'm going to turn it on low and let it continue to cook for as much as 10 minutes. Check it every once in a while and make sure that it's not scorching on the bottom. But if you've got it on low heat, it should be okay. Now, as I mentioned, it's common. It doesn't have a lot of flavor, so it's usually served with something else. And so what I have cooking over here is what would be referred to as a relish. And basically, it combines whatever is in season. If the family has meat or fish available, which are also fairly common, fish is real common where I was because it's right on a river. Along the coast, they have a lot of seafood. You're just going to saute these in a little bit of fat or oil or a little bit of water if you don't have that, and let that cook until the other is ready. Now, families there would use this as a main meal, very, very common. What I was doing there was that they have these types of produce in season, and then they don't have anything to serve with the Xima. So my goal was to look at ways to dehydrate food, to see if we could extend that season. So we worked on building dehydrators with materials that are common or at least available there. One of the things I was surprised that was not available were cardboard boxes, because we were making dehydrators, solar dehydrators, out of cardboard boxes, little wooden slats, wrapping screening over them, and then plastic over the top of that. And the hardest thing to find was actually the cardboard box, because they don't let go of them. It's something that the family can continue to use multi-purpose and for many things. So to use it as a dehydrator was giving something up that could be used used for something else. So we prepared the dehydrators, we prepared bananas, we prepared tomatoes, and we put those in those solar dehydrators, and we left them there with folks so that they could put them out in the sun. We taught them how to bring them in so that they would maintain quality of the product during night or during the rain, how to aim them towards the sun during the day, and then hopefully we'll be able to work with them. I left them information on how to use some of these foods, but my goal would be to be able to go back and use some of the dehydrated food that they've done, and also look at dehydrating some other things. They have a lot of greens, they have cabbage, they have many other things, and we only had time to work with tomatoes and bananas. So if we can get it to the point where they are pleased with the product that they make for eating with their Xima from dehydration, then maybe we can help a lot of the families get through times of the year when food is not as abundant. So let's check and see how we're doing. This normally would cook a little bit longer. You can see that it's already getting thicker. It will thicken up. If you wanted it to be even thicker, you could take it off the heat and let it chill just like you would polenta. You can cut it and fry it the same way you would that kind of thing. And then this is going to be mounded on the plate or in a bowl. And as I said, the servings are fairly large there. This is actually about half of a serving of what I would have been given when I was in Mozambique. And then the relish goes on the side. Now, this is also a little bit hotter than what would be given, and the reason that it's allowed to get plenty thick is because very often it's eaten with the hands, so that it cools down enough. You can take a small amount of it with your hands and roll it into a small ball and then combine it with the relish that you have. The relish would also often be much finer, so that it would be easier for them to eat with their hands. They could just actually dip it into the relish that they had, or you could scoop it up with the Xima. I hope this is something that you'll give a try. It's something different, it's something that's worldly, but something that also fits our own culture and it comes back. You can see how small the world is when you do a little bit of travel, and you can kind of connect the dots with the foods that folks are eating there and the foods that you grew up eating here. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.